Got a lot to talk about tonight. No, mamas, psst, psst, come here. Alrighty, everybody, welcome in. This is Weather Center Live. Live on April 8th, 2024. We are now 8 days deep into April. We are getting into the second quarter of 2024. And yep, Scrooge McDuck, you got it. It is officially showtime. I do want to immediately start off by saying I am sincerely sorry that I did not live up to the community post that I shared yesterday. I really wanted to come live yesterday. It was ridiculous dealing with, and I'm going to just name drop them. I don't think anybody out there is watching, associated, or affiliated with them, but Frontier, garbage. Porqueria. Was miserable getting, not only going to Puerto Rico, but coming back. They just made it so difficult. Extremely difficult. So yesterday, ran way too late. Didn't walk in the door till almost 8:30. Probably pushing 9 o'clock. Didn't have luggage. Nothing. So, unfortunately, we just couldn't stick to it. I wanted to, and there's a lot that we're still going to talk about tonight. There's a tremendous amount that we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to try to get through it, and to be determined. Tonight we're doing something a little different. We got our United States Navy mug for new viewers, yes. Active United States Navy member. And this is, once again, the trademark sipping on the coffee as we get ready to do a live brief because we have a tremendous amount to talk about. We're going to start off by saying hello to a few folks. Isaac Logan, good to see you. Glad that you're excited to see everybody. Jay, hello there. Chris, welcome in. Nomad Cat 4, good to see you. PM as well. Malachi, welcome back. Good to see you. Isaac, how close are we? And Super Charas, welcome in. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. We're going to get started here in about another couple moments. Catch everybody up. Matt F-150, good evening. Rest in peace, Elsinore, good riddance. What is that? I'm not too sure what that means. But thank you, everybody, for joining in tonight. Again, got a little bit of a scheduled event we're going to break down. We're talking big-time severe weather possibility for Texas, Louisiana, I should say the Dixie Alley area, as well as the rest of the Southeast. And it looks like we're going to do our very best to maybe activate chase mode here on Wednesday night into Thursday. So it's going to be a rough, I'm already thinking about it, but you know what? If the conditions look very favorable, we're going to just jump right in. I would work all day, and then as soon as I clock out at 7 p.m., we're just racing for the Panhandle because it looks very, very reminiscent of what we saw back in early January, maybe not to the fullest extent, maybe not 110% a mirror representation of it, but it does look very, very favorable for another big-time severe weather event. David, I forgot to tell you that I had the meeting with BBC. How did it go, Matt F-150? You can either shoot me a private message on Instagram or you can drop it in the chat, however you want to disclose it, however it seems best for you. So this is where we are currently. This is day one. Day one, we have, this enhanced region has been going up as well. This bad boy right in through here. I've been watching this all day long. Earlier this morning when I woke up, we had a tiny blip of enhanced over the upper central portions of Texas. Oh, Willow's here, by the way. You can see her tail in the camera. She has really rough separation anxiety, so she is definitely going to be with us in the stream, and hopefully she stays here. That enhanced risk has been going up, and truthfully, I am not against it whatsoever. Now, granted, I'm fresh back on the block. I have not had the opportunity to really look heavily at a bunch of stuff. I've been primarily focusing on what's going on in the Southeast, particularly the Florida Panhandle, northern Florida, and we'll see what happens. But this is day one. The expansive severe weather threat continues to grow. Day two doesn't really move because we have just kind of the open gates of instability and moisture surging up out of the western and central Gulf, and it's going to stay there as we slowly but surely see low-pressure cyclogenesis over the eastern half of the state that's going to rocket off towards the northeast into the Midwest and the Great Lakes, which they're actually designated for a potential severe weather threat on day 4. I'll show you that here in a second. I'm not too privy to that. Really not too privy with that because it does look like it's going to be primarily a conditional threat down here, which is why, I'm still on the fence as to whether or not we're going to go full chase mode on Wednesday night. This is day 3. This is what we're looking at for the possibility of going storm chasing. This is valid from, I believe this is 12 to 12Z, if I'm not mistaken, or 7 to 7 Central Standard Time. And we're thinking of targeting back to where we'd initially had, and we missed the tornado back in January. So we're going to try to plant ourselves between Pensacola and Panama City if conditions look fairly reasonable. We shall see. What are you doing, Willow? So we're going to dive into that, and then I'll go ahead and click on not the state view. Pardon me. I'm sorry, guys. Let me click on national. I always dork that up. Let's go to national. And then as you can see here, this is day 4 for Thursday. And surprisingly, this makes sense. Okay, that definitely makes sense. I could see them going with a level 2, maybe a small area of enhanced along the immediate coastline. This, I'm not too sure what is going on. Not too sure what is going on because it looks like a large majority of the greatest instability is barely even going to make it into the southeast. It does not look like a whole lot could happen for interior uppermost Alabama. Georgia, a large majority of the Carolinas are going to be left out, at least based on what I've been looking at preliminarily. Of course, I'm very ripe and fresh to this. I haven't had the opportunity to look. But I'm still very closely examining what's going to even happen near the Panhandle and the Big Bend of Florida. Let's just put it that way. And it seems like it's going to be a big stretch as to whether or not we're going to see severe weather expand well into, we'll say, the similar areas we saw with our last event, Tennessee, the Carolinas, Virginia, etc. So we shall see. We're going to dive right into this, but this is day 4. Let's go ahead and start taking a look at the big picture. So this is our 12Z European model, our favorite model of all time. And here we go. So this is day 1. We can see all that really, really robust return flow outstretched across Dixie Alley, the southern plains, and the southeast. We have a very, very prominent anticyclonic spinning high pressure off of our coastline. If you guys see my mouse do this, it's literally because I have Willow right here, and she just keeps headbutting my wrist as I'm trying to move my mouse. So perfect gradient. We have a pretty wonderful southerly fetch with this high pressure. It's digging right into all that hot modifying air down over the Caribbean, down over the Bahamas, the Central American landmass, and I can testify it is very, very warm and toasty down there. And the waters, I was not joking when I shared on my Instagram. I put out a little post of me being silly at one of the beaches there in northern Puerto Rico. I forget the name of it. And I did a quick little spiel of, I can testify that the waters are indeed warm, and yada, 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 just for the sake of being silly but cool at the same time. And it is hot out there. It is, you could genuinely feel, like, you know how sometimes when you get in the water, if you get in a pool or you go to the beach, it takes you a little bit. You kind of have to just get into it, situate yourself to get used to it. In this case, you're like walking into a bathtub. There was no period of where you really had to get used to it. That's how warm it was. Just to put it into perspective for you guys, for humans to be able to just walk in there and be like, oh, this is comfortable, I could fall asleep in here, it goes to show how abnormally hot the Atlantic waters are. And this is off the coast of northern Puerto Rico. So wonderful southerly flow, return flow down into the southeast quadrant of the U.S. This is already our severe weather sector getting set up. You can see that this pressure gradient to the north over the Midwest, the Great Lakes, and the northern plains does not favor as much. But down here over the south, before we turn back towards a westerly direction, right over Missouri, yeah, that's Missouri. I don't know why I was going to say Iowa. Missouri, Indiana, Illinois, and etc. This is where our severe weather sector is establishing itself, and all of our models continue to trend this wonderfully. We have excellent run-to-run consistency and model-to-model consistency. There goes our cyclogenesis, and this is moving into Wednesday and Thursday. This is where I do think we could see some pretty substantial severe weather. This is exactly the type of scenario we had pop off back in early January for my folks who remember that. We got a nice cold frontal boundary through there, warm frontal boundary right in through there, so then you have all your severe weather out ahead of it. And the wind speeds off of this system could be very, very favorable for not only big hail, very good thunderstorm potential, but that tornadic threat as well. And I've been seeing a lot of folks mentioning that there is a threat for strong tornadoes, F2 or greater. So we're going to kind of diagnose that a little bit as well. Judy, welcome in. Thank you very much. Alfalfa, thank you very much for joining us as well. It could upgrade over the next few days. I do agree with that. Yeah, it almost, I mean, I won't say that it's hot. Like, don't get me wrong, I didn't get in there and feel like I was in a hot tub, but again, to try to put it into perspective for you guys, I'm sure everyone in this chat is very familiar with you get in a pool on a hot summer day, or you go to the beach, you go to the springs if you live here in Florida, and you know how typically it still takes you a while to get used to it, and it's either you just jump right in, or as soon as you walk in, you just submerge yourself so that way you get that initial woo out of the way. In this case, there was none of that. I truthfully thought, especially being that we're just into early April, that, it was going to take a bit of an acclimation to get in there and really start to enjoy it, but nope, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I was used to it within seconds, and this was like probably the only first time where I decided, yeah, I'm just going to jump in for the fun of it, not to get myself accommodated or anything like that. So this is what we're bullseyeing right here. This is 6Z on Thursday, so this would be about 2 o'clock in the morning Eastern Standard Time. This is 12 Zulu, so this is 8 a.m. 18Z, this is middle of the afternoon, I believe, either 4 or 5 p.m., and the system, this is going to be a fast-moving, I shouldn't say fast, this is going to be it'll slow down as it continues to deepen up there, but the initial onslaught of it is going to move very fast. If you notice, in almost just 3 timestamps, we're going from East Texas all the way into Florida and the rest of the Southeast, and then it'll slow down as that system becomes deep occluded again. At this point, this is 0Z Friday. We have a very, very deep occluded low. Same spot as always. It's that springtime pattern with a little bit of El Nino still peppered in there, which we're going to talk about as well. El Nino is dying. El Nino is choking itself out. It's being asphyxiated as we speak. This is when we're going to go occluded, and we're going to have our cold front and our warm sector outreached like this, and that's why everything else is going to slow down. We're going to start losing the progression of that active frontal sector. This portion of it right in through here where I'm drawing the box is going to continue to rotate and wrap around the system, extending our purple front, the occlusion here, but this is going to start to slow down, and once again, that's why Florida really isn't going to have, a tremendous amount of severe weather. Just like always, we're going to miss the party, so as how close are we mentioned in the chat already, here in the Weather Center, it is very conditional as to whether or not we're really going to activate chase mode or not. It's there. The presence of seeing some tornadic and supercellular activity up there in very westernmost Florida panhandle is there, but it's extremely conditional, considerably marginal, to tell you the truth. In SPC's discussion, they put several tornadoes for tomorrow. I think that makes sense. In Miami Beach in July, the water is bathtub temperature. It's so warm, it's almost not even worth going in sometimes. I agree. And Super Charis, thank you very much. I'm really not practicing too much behind the scenes. I'm just trying to, use my imagination a little bit. And I'm glad that you thought that this thumbnail sort of stood out. From there, this is going to continue to ravage the east and the northeast, and I'm ready for all the folks to start hyping the snowfall, whoever wants to continue to talk about snow, even though I've been telling everyone when I've posted there and there on Instagram and TikTok that I really don't think this next system's going to bring a lot of snow. I think that train has come and gone. That ship has sailed. Whoa, whoa. We got a timeout. I'm sorry. We got to go. We got to switch AORs. I just noticed something. Something a little bizarre that I had mentioned going back to our water temps, and that's very, very interesting, muy interesante. So hold on a second. Scroll to the very tail end of the loop, and what in the heck is that? Very, very interesting, and that's just off the northern coast of Puerto Rico. Now, I'm not sounding the alarm here, but it takes a lot for the European model to highlight stuff like this, and I wonder if it's on the GFS. Has that been on there at all recently, or is this one of those rogue 12Z European model? I mean, there's a little something right there. All right, I guess this live brief just turned into live interrogation mode. Let's take a look at a couple of the parameters down here, shall we? Let's go to active cyclone. No, I don't want active cyclones. Never mind. Let's go down to cyclone locations. Let's go to the European ensembles and see what we see down there. Wow, all right, well, not much. Not much agreement. A little something. I thought there'd be a little bit more. Not a whole lot. But that's very eerie. That is very eerie to see something down there. Very eerie. Let's take a look at our probabilities. Are our probabilities highlighting anything? Nope. I got Willow's fur in my mouth. Look at that. There's action out there in the Pacific, though. There's a little bit of action out there in the Pacific. See that? Very interesting. All right. Nothing there yet. But you know what? That is not a what's what I'm looking for. That is not very astonishing, to tell you the truth. Again, it goes back to what I was discussing about the water temps. It's really not astonishing. And we're going to get into that here in a second, and I don't mean to derail the briefing. I just kind of very quickly want to look at a few things and see what's going on down there. Let me see if that's on GFS. So there goes our front moving through, and a little something. Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. Yeah, no, but you can definitely see that precip activity really starting to kick up down there. That's for certain. So that's not a good sign. We already have a lot of good moisture pushing into the Caribbean. Oh, so it is, I don't think that's the same system, actually. Timeout. That is not the same thing. What's the timestamp on this? That's 12. No, this is 0Z. There's 12Z, so that's April 18th. That's not the same thing. It's 15th, 16th, 17th. Okay, so the GFS has a little something down there trying to pull itself together. And then there's another feature that kind of just rapidly accelerates out of that same area on the 21st. Shucks, that concerns me. And that's not me saying I'm concerned about, tropical development on either one of those dates, but that just kind of worries me in terms of how early could the season turn on. That's what my kind of antenna are doing right now. I'm not looking at this thinking, it's time, got to put out a tropical update. But what I'm thinking is, how early could we possibly see the season turn on? I know I've been personally thinking it will not be outlandish to see something in May, but shucks, if we see something at the end of April into May, that would be spectacular. That would definitely raise a lot of eyebrows and hopefully get more eyes on the tropics. Because, I watched CSU's briefing at least 3 different times over. I watched it the day it released at the airport. I watched it in Puerto Rico, and then I watched it on my way home on the airplane. I downloaded another version of it just so I could rewatch it and really listen to the details. So I don't know. We'll definitely have to see. But anyways, let's get back into business. So now that we're here, let's take a look at the GFS. Again, GFS is 150% on board with what the European model is calling for, and right at the same time, you know what? Real quick, for shoots and giggles, I just realized, let's look at our icon in the Canadian model. Because I forgot, we still have the icon in the Canadian model for things like this. Does icon go out far enough? Okay, so the icon has, moisture coming in from out of the Atlantic and kind of moving up towards the Bahamas. So we'll have to see what that does. And let's go over to the Canadian model real quick. What does the Canada model show? So the Canadian model has a little something getting pulled up by the front, but nothing spectacular. Okay, let's go ahead and stop beating the dead horse. Oh, you know what? We have the AI European model. Look at that. The AI European model has something. Now that is extremely interesting. Let me go out to the bigger view. Because the European artificial intelligence model has... Look at that. So that is definitely, that right there is a homegrown indicator right there. And again, disclaimer, we have 61 people in here. Disclaimer, before I start getting people upset, I'm not saying tropical development. I'm simply exploring theories that I've had. Twilight Firefly, welcome in. I see your comment up there. Thank you very much for joining us, hun. Kevin Rivera, by the way, I haven't shouted you out yet, but thank you very much for joining. I had a wonderful time in Puerto Rico. I really can't wait to go back. But yeah, that's very interesting. So if you guys look, the AI Euro, you could kind of track it. So when people say homegrown systems, homegrown means we have these baroclinic systems move through and the tail ends of the fronts can start to spin. When they get over the water, you get that circulation, just like we saw towards the back end of last hurricane season on several different instances. Only this year, we're not going to have that protective barrier of El Nino. That's what everyone's worried about. And if you notice, we have this weak, unstable wave way out here near the Azores, and that frontal appendage draped way back into the Caribbean where the hottest waters are. And if you track it through, notice that we keep a little bit of that energy kind of consolidated right here. The resolution on the Euro is very poor. This the artificial intelligence. Well, I wouldn't say that it's poor, pardon me, but what's going on is it has a lot of smoothing. The Euro AI has a lot of smoothing going on with it. But if you notice, I'm watching this blip as it pushes westward towards the Lesser Antilles, and then notice how it interacts with the front right there, and it pulls up and gets picked up by that front and then spins out and disappears. So very, very, very interesting. Very interesting. So our artificial intelligence Euro has that bad boy popping up as well. Was that on the 0Z? Because it could go out far enough to where we can see it. Yeah, it was on the 0Z as well. And then it gets lifted up, picked up by another system. So it was on 0 and 12Z. How particular or how peculiar. All right, anyways, back to it. We'll use the Eastern AOI this time so you guys can see a little bit closer. So here we go. There's our system blowing up down over the south. This could definitely be a big severe weather day. This is Wednesday. Tuesday, nonetheless, we have a lot of rising air and unstable air over Texas, southern Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana. I think we could see some extension of this pushing off towards the east-northeast. I don't think it's only going to be in Texas, but we shall see. The closer you get to that high pressure as well, you're going to have more of that sinking air, that subsidence, so that could also help to suppress it a little bit. But then once we get that system to finally undergo genesis and begin to push off towards the northeast, that's when everything's going to fully kick off. You can see our thickness packing really sinking down towards the south. Wonderful thickness chart, or wonderful thickness lines right in through here. 552, button right up against the 576, so great temperature discontinuity. Our 570 line is way up in through here already, getting ready to surge further to the north. Some will still continue to argue with you that 564 is the true delineation between your polar and subtropical air, so regardless, you're definitely well within that severe weather sector. And this southern mode is what we're going to be monitoring, because it looks like we have our barotropic system at this point pull back into the cold air like our last system did and continue to spin up over the Great Lakes. And then we have the remainder of that frontal appendage drifting down towards the east and southeast. And this is what we're going to be tracking down here in the Weather Center. And so we'll see exactly what that does. The NAM 3 kilometer looks fairly impressive. This is what I've been looking at. We're finally in range to see the NAM 3 kilometer. And if you guys look, day one, let me go back. There's day one, lots of really good activity. In fact, look at that. The NAM 3K does exactly what I had just explained. The enhanced is down over Texas, but the NAM 3 kilometer has it all pretty situated up through Oklahoma, Arkansas, even some of Mississippi could get a little bit of action as well. Tries to miss. I apologize. I got Willow's fur messing with my nose. And we've got Missouri. No, that's Arkansas getting in on the action as well. Then day two, as we get into Wednesday, right there, we start to see a lot more of that discrete activity as our system finally develops. And then here's day three. And this is what we're going to be watching for right there. Lots of really good discrete activity kicking off along the leading edge of that linear convective complex or linear convective system. So that's what we have going on right there. I was looking at RRFS. The RRFS, or the Rufus model, is right on track with that as well. Did I lose it? Did I accidentally change it up? I think I did. I got way too excited about that tropical entity, and I dorked up what I was using. This is our 18Z RRFS model. The RRFS corroborates very well what the 3 kilometer NAM was predicting, with a lot of serious weather hitting earlier than the NAM 3 kilometer. This is why I'm still torn and up in the air, because if this does unfold, if the Rufus model, their RRFS, is a lot more accurate than what all the other models are thinking, just like with that previous system that hit Florida, this is going to be a bust. Not going to be able to make it. There's no way. Unless I instant transmission like someone out of Dragon Ball Z, there's no way I'm going to get up there to the Panhandle after clocking out. I would have just clocked out 2 hours before this, and everything is already unfolding. I mean, there's some discrete activity. It looks like it tries to flare up down there. And what's very interesting is if we zoom in, I was looking at this before the stream started because I'm like very perplexed about this. If you look, there's a lot of really good discrete activity just kind of encompassing southern Georgia, southern Alabama, and then most of northern Florida, and especially the Panhandle. But then if you switch over to the Cape does not line up with it at all. There's nothing. Look at that. I mean, overnight, it looks like we finally get a bit of a surge pushing in there, but doesn't line up at all with what the model is thinking, in terms of where our simulated reflectivity is going to try to establish itself. Supercell composite looks like it tries to surge once we get closer to 2 a.m. So, I mean, if this does trend and this does continue with the 2 to 4 a.m. time frame, we could get a really nice surge of activity down there in terms of our SIG-Torn, hail, and supercell parameters. I think SIG-Torn mimics that as well. It kind of pushes up. Yeah, see, it pushes up at the last second, and this is 2 a.m. Now, 2 a.m., it'll be exhausting, but I can definitely make that. So we'll see. Right now, this is where we're thinking. Extreme western Florida. We're going to push beyond Tallahassee, unlike what we did before. It'd be about a 6-hour drive. And if I hit the road by 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, 12:30, 1:30, we'd get there right in time, pending I don't have to use the bathroom again and again. And I know my car can get up there with 1 tank of gas. We did it before when we did Tallahassee. We had plenty of gas still once we got up there. And I just got my Sun Pass in the mail, so that's good to go. We're going to hit tolls all the way up and down. And so we'll see. Let's switch on over to our HRRR. I'm not too sure we're going to get all the way. I think we could get all the way out there if we go back to our 18Z model run. Let's see. Let me go back to 18 Zulu so we can get an extension of this. Let's go to simulated radar, 18Z. We might be able to catch 0Z before this stream ends. So there you have it. There's our 18. Yeah, see, so the HRRR is right in line with what the RRFS is thinking. Kind of the same timing. This is 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Wednesday, so I definitely would not be able to catch this, but this definitely looks like a this looks like a very solid shot of severe weather through Alabama, Mississippi, and especially Louisiana, with some lingering activity going on in Arkansas, maybe trying to breach the state line of Tennessee as well. Let me go to the Cape. Yeah, see, the HRRR looks very, very generous in its Cape. Looks like it's going to try to keep a lot of that initial stuff out of the Florida Panhandle until we get that surge out of the Gulf of Mexico. And if we come back over to the NAM 3 kilometer, this is what I'm also watching for as well. The 3K NAM has a tremendous shear component out there. And you know what? This kind of makes sense with why. If you look at the way the shear ramps up at the last second as that front continues to wrap its way down along the back side of this, there's your front. This is your warm sector right in through here. It makes sense that fire hose effect is trying to accelerate the winds, bring that Cape up and out of the Gulf of Mexico, because the Gulf waters are very warm. That'll definitely help to get that instability going. Bring the bases of the thunderstorm activity down. That is a very impressive area of mid-level shear, low-level shear, I should say. Low-level jet just screaming across there. And if you look at the surface winds are nothing to laugh at either. It doesn't look nearly as impressive on this overlay because the colors, the wind barbs, are not as impressive. But if you switch over to, what model was I looking at? I think I was on the College of DuPage. If you come over to the College of DuPage and you look at the surface winds on here, it's a little bit easier to use. Look at all these low-level winds right there. We're going to have easily tropical storm winds hitting the coastline if this verifies. If this verifies, we shall see. Because, we got to remember our models it seems like our models love to overestimate our wind speeds. They seem to do that a lot. The HRRR with that one system back in January was calling for 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts in Central Florida, and that really didn't take shape. We were out there on foot waiting for those puppies to hit. Let me see what the HRRR thinks. Yeah, see, so the HRRR is thinking roughly the same thing. Some really good winds coming out of the coastline, and if these continue to funnel on up, especially out ahead of our front, the front is back here at this point. This is all our warm sector, and you can see all that really, really good confluent flow or that convergent wind flow right there. That's going to help a lot of our precursor activity as this continues to shoot off towards the east. Let's see. And the ITZ is activating. We shall see. It's definitely going to start to come alive in May. That's what a lot of our models are thinking. Reed Timmer seems to use the H. Yeah, the HRRR, you know, a lot of the higher res models are fairly reliable. The HRRR is one of the better ones. It has a proven track record, just like our European model. The NAM 3K, the NAM does well. It just has certain biases. The Rufus model has definitely proved itself, at least in my tenure of using it, that's for sure. And I have no complaints I don't have very many complaints with things like the NDFD, the FV3, which is actually what the GFS kind of enwraps in it, or unravels itself with it. Brenda, hello from the Virgin Islands. Brenda, thank you for joining us. Nazar, you should come to St. Thomas next time you're in. That'd be a great idea, actually. I would not be opposed to that whatsoever. If we do get slammed by some serious hurricane activity down there, I actually thought of the idea while I was out in Puerto Rico to do some site visits down there to help with relief efforts. You know, if I can't do things specifically here in Florida, I can at least get out there. If I don't have the social media presence or the backing from a bunch of you guys, I can personally still fly out there and try to assist as best as I can. So, you know, going back to this, we shall see. It's going to be a very tough call. The 3-kilometer NAM seems to be in full agreement that we can get some good juice up there. If you look at this is 6Z. We have anywhere between 1,600 to 14 to 16, maybe getting up towards 1,700 joules per kilogram of cape sneaking into the Florida Panhandle. The mixing layer cape does also look fairly impressive, for the most part anyways. I mean, for what it is, right about the same. What was it that I was looking at earlier? Where is the EHI? I was looking at EHI earlier. Supercell composite, again, highlighting our area very well. So, I mean, the pieces are there. We will see. We'll have to continue to watch closely. And if you come down towards our Theta E, my favorite tool to identify where our severe weather activity can occur, you look, and there is that very, very nice piece of Theta E right here. This is kind of what I tend to look for. This very, very this is a weak signature, but the Theta E ridge is there. So this is your severe weather sector. Might get a little pop-off activity to the north of that, but there's your severe weather sector right in through there. Good convergent wind flow in the low levels. As everybody else likes to harp on, the dew points are definitely there. Dew points, bro. They're definitely well up into the 70s down there. And you can see the lifted index on here also hitting that -6, -7, which is definitely indicative of supercell tornadic activity. In fact, I'm willing to bet if we were to take a sounding, we would probably see tornado as the severe weather threat highlighted at this point in time. Let's see. Let's pull up a 3-kilometer NAM sounding. I'm going to have to blow my nose. Shoot. That fur is really aggravating. There it is. So hodograph almost looks like a hockey stick. That's your trademark tornadic signature. The cape at this point in time, wow, for 2 in the morning, 1,500 joules per kilogram with 1,100 mixing layer. PWatt, precipitable water is about 2 inches, which is excellent. Downdraft cape, 474. Really good shear vectors, as a matter of fact. Wow, actually, this is very, very optimal shear, to tell you the truth. And for you guys watching the stream right now, I'm looking down in the middle column right here. Looking in the middle column, and if you look, we have our surface to 1, surface to 3, so we kind of drop off the shear just a little bit. But then notice this, surface to 6 and surface to 8. Solid jumps in our wind shear. From 49 knots to 68 knots, so that'll definitely help to bring it down. Definitely get it to bring it down. And then if you notice the potential hazard type tornado right there. And you can see the, excuse me, that rotating hodograph as it goes up. So, I don't know. We shall see. Well, no, it's not going to be the most impressive. This is Florida we're looking at. We're not looking at Tornado Alley. But in terms of what Florida can do, that is definitely very favorable considering what we have going to work with, or what we have to work with, I should say. So, in fact, down to the right there, if you look, as well as the potential hazard type, we also have classic supercell signature here. Wow, this model is actually going probabilities of EF2 given supercell, so that's very interesting to see. My whole thing is looking at these indices or these values. And apologize if I go quiet. I'm just reading all the different statistics here. Yeah, see, the inflow doesn't look bad. That surface to 6 and surface to 8 looks very good. And then all the way up to the equilibrium level, we have about 106. So yeah, I mean, we exponentially, well, maybe not exponentially, but we incrementally increase our wind shear all the way up to the EL. So, you know, I don't know. Very solid cape. You can see it right in through here. They have it drawn out. Once you hit that, there I go, drawing the very, very whack lines. Once you hit that, I wonder if we're using we're using the LFC in this case. So once you hit that, well, the LCL. We're using the LCL. Once you hit that level of free convection, you go all the way up, and that shear just continues to go up. So yeah, we'll have to see. This is just one model, so I'm not completely calling it just yet, but still a decent looking sounding. Very, very weak dry air intrusion in the mid-levels. That's not the most impressive. So I really don't know if we're going to get a ton of hail out of this, if at all. What is our wet bulb height anyways? Does this have wet bulb 0 on it? I would think this has wet bulb 0. Surface, cape, ML cape, effective cape, LFC, equilibrium level, LCL. Do you guys happen to know if this has wet bulb 0 on it and where to look? I'm used to my weather or Air Force weather soundings, and they usually have it in a fixed area. I'm just seeing a lot of supercell stuff. Maybe they don't have it highlighted on here because this is not really a hail sounding or a hail type of sounding. There's our LFC lifted index. Lifted index is very good too. Net -7. -7 LI is definitely optimal for supercells. That's for certain. It's a good rule of thumb. Convective temp is only 79 degrees, and that's definitely doable. It's been very hot. It's been very hot down here. And the max temp that they're forecasting, at least according to this sounding, is 85 degrees during the day. So that convective temp has the likelihood of getting busted for sure. Don't see... Oh, there's your 0 degree line. So yeah, your wet bulb 0 height is not the most... It's just outside that optimal height for good hail. So I don't know if we're going to get a lot of hail out of this. We'll definitely see hail. I don't see why we wouldn't have hail, but I agree, Willow. I don't think we're going to get large hail. Yeah, she's talking to me now, too. I have her right here. She's back. Here, come and say hi to the camera real quick. I'm not moving you. Say hi, mamas. See, I'm going to shout out to Reed Timmer. Reed Timmer has Gizmo, but we have Willow here. Right, mamas? I just don't know if you'd want to go storm chasing with me. She smells good. So yeah, I'm on board with it. It's just going to be a rough day, that's for certain. But you know what? I do want to chase. So we will see. We will see. That's all we can do, is time will tell. It's definitely there. It's definitely adequate. It's doable. Let's put it that way. Definitely doable. What is if the convective temp was 71, what is it forecasting for max temp that day? Oh, you know what? Actually, max heating of the day does not... It's going to be close. Max heating of the day... Oh, actually, there it is. That's it. So we do... That's very interesting as well. The warm air advection out ahead of this, right before the front passes through as you get into that low-level jet. Take a look at that. There's your ridge. That's interesting. So the NAM 3 kilometers actually anticipating we could hit that convective temp well into post-sundown just because of how much warm air is going to be getting pulled up by our vortex here. No, I mean, it's not the most impressive for what it is, but then again, it wasn't extremely impressive when we had that system go through in January, and we remember what happened there. That was a mother of a system, especially to start the new year. So let's see, what does the HRRR think for surface temp? Is this also predicting that we could hit that convective temp overnight? That's going to be very interesting. Let's see. So warmer, yeah. Well, yeah, definitely big time. So HRRR is definitely on board with getting that convective temp to pop off. We don't get skew T soundings on here. Can we go far enough in time to take a look at what the wrap is thinking? Probably not. Oh, yeah, actually, yes, we can. Cool. So let's take a look at what the wrap is thinking, or the ruck. What is the wrap? And I know the wrap is sworn by Storm Prediction Center. The wrap is always used by SPC. So the wrap does not look very favorable. In fact, wow, the wrap has it either moving very slowly. What is going on here? The wrap model has this moving extremely slow. Jeez, there goes Willow's fur again. So yeah, this is bizarre. This is, once again, very, very out of phase. Because as you guys saw, the wrap thinks our greatest cape is going to be back here when all of our thunderstorm activity is out ahead of it. So that's not very impressive. We'll take a look at a skew T sounding here in a second. What does the 850 millibar flow look like? So 850, very optimal. 50 knots of wind shear out of the south. And that's at 0Z. This is 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's going to definitely continue to accelerate. Look at that. You get a little jet max, or a mid-level jet max that's coming out of the Gulf of Mexico with very strong winds wrapping around the back side of it. That's interesting. What does the temperature advection look like? Is there also an increase in warm advection at that point? Heck yeah, there is. Look at that. Very good warm advection coming out of there. So, that's very, very interesting. What do the SIG-Torn parameters look like? Take a quick glance at it. So, yeah, SIG-Torn parameters are there, but they're out of phase. Everything is out of phase on the wrap. That's bizarre. I don't know if EHI is a little more in phase. Just a little bit. Just a little bit more in phase. And the supercell composite, probably out of phase. No, actually, the supercell composite is a little bit more in phase. So we'll see what this looks like tomorrow. We'll definitely have to see what this looks like tomorrow. Let's take a look at a sounding, see if the wrap is on board with it. And yes, I agree. How close are we? I do think that southern Alabama is definitely going to be the greatest risk for some activity, some severe weather activity. So even this is calling for tornado. Not as impressive. Can we go back just a little bit? This is 51 hours. No, it doesn't look like it's doing very well with the timing whatsoever. Yeah, we'll have to wait until tomorrow to see what this looks like when we wake up in the morning, get a few more runs. Because I think this is still a little too far away for it to be nailed down very successfully. Hodograph, a little bit more impressive than what the NAM 3 kilometer showed us. Still have that tornado classic supercell indicator. Shear is optimal, in fact, increasing in this case. 1 kilometer 31, 3 kilometer 41, 54 at 6, and then 63 at 8, all the way to the equilibrium level, just shy of 100 with that rotational capacity in the actual, you got that veering with height. We're definitely veering in this case, so we'll see. Lifted index is not nearly as impressive. Our cape is trash, according to the ruck. But again, we'll have to see what this looks like when we wake up tomorrow morning. Oh, this is the start of it. Never mind. I just reset. Pay no mind to this. I just reset it. So yeah, I mean, it's there. It's definitely there. Don't get me wrong. We'll have to see exactly what shakes out. But TBD. Let's see. All right, guys. We're at 43 minutes of the stream, and I don't want to run too late over time because I'd like to sit down and relax after this before, going back to doing homework and other attendee things that I need to do. But this is it. Let's get into the meat and potatoes. We will reevaluate our severe weather risk with either an update tomorrow or another live brief as we get closer and closer to game time. We'll probably do a live brief tomorrow, to tell you the truth, because if I'm chasing on Wednesday, I'm not going to have time. I'm going to have to leave as soon as I get out of work. So here we go. We have a couple new things to go over tonight. We're going to start off with data. Actually, you know what? No, we're not going to start off with data. We're going to start off with this. So we had TSR, which TSR also just recently came out with another update. They released a second preliminary hurricane season forecast. Oh, no, of course I want to spend hours and hours with you guys. I do. I just realistically can't, unfortunately. There have been so many different times that I would love to spend a lot. I was even thinking about that today. I'm sitting there thinking as I'm doing errands, I'm like, gosh, This is what it would be like if I was full-time weather content creator. I could go and take care of business, don't have to worry about X, Y, and Z, and then mosey on in, deep dive into weather activity, and then get into a brief or get into a video, and so on. Goals. Hashtag goals big time. So TSR came out with another prediction. So did the University of Arizona, from sources I've seen floating around social media as well. But this was the big one. This was the one that everybody was counting down to. This goes, I believe, hand in hand with NOAA, National Hurricane Center. And the CSU forecast is definitely looking very, very rough. Let's put it that way. And they actually did throw a little bit of that sensationalist jargon in there. And they actually said extreme hurricane season. Could be a potentially extreme hurricane season with 23 total named storms, 115 named storm days, which is very impressive. That's a long period of time if you guys think about it. That's pushing just under 4 months of having some sort of a named system out there in the Atlantic. And if you think about it, from June, July, August, September, October, we start to see things go down, and then November, we have that 6-month time frame. They're thinking that anywhere from around 3.5 to 4 months out of the 6-month hurricane season, we will have a named storm out there just doing its thing. That's not talking landfalls, location, etc. They're just thinking 115 named storm days. And to put that into perspective for you guys who've never heard that before, what they're saying is, in total of the 180 days that were in the hurricane season per the calendar, 115 of those could be active named storm from A to Z, or A to whatever. 11 hurricanes, which, again, their average is usually around the 6 to 7 percentile or 7 mark. Hurricane days, 45, so a little over a month is what they're thinking, like a month and a half of hurricane days out there. 5 major hurricanes, 13 major hurricane days, so, nothing too impressive there. And a total ACE of 210, with a total ACE of 100, or not 100, but Ace, Waste, West, I was going to turn into Patrick. Oh, East. I thought you said West. A total ACE score beyond 60 degrees longitude, which means somebody's getting hit by this thing. 125, which is very close to what we had in total for the last hurricane season, 2023, which is very bizarre and very intense to think about. So this is big. I saw this and I was like, yep, this is it. We're definitely buckling down, because CSU is definitely, granted, of course, the general public out there is in an outcry. I don't know why everyone's so pissed off about hurricanes this year. Either that or they always are, and they're just, I don't get it. Maybe they're just as abnormally hot-headed as the Atlantic is. But everyone's pissed. I don't know why. They should really be paying attention. We have full-on doctored-up individuals in the field of meteorology talking this stuff. This is not some YouTuber saying, 23 named storms, look out, extreme Vince. That's not what they're doing. This is somebody who has dedicated almost their entire life, their entire career to tropical meteorology. So when they put this stuff out, you should probably pay attention. And for someone as big as Colorado State, with a wonderful meteorology department, to mention 23 named storms, we're pushing it. Yeah, CSU, exactly. And that's the thing, too. Silver Steel, an excellent point. A lot of folks out there, and I've been commenting, I've been going full, I'm going to cocotazo, puño, if you keep on talking smack. Because there's a lot of folks who have been saying, CSU always says that there's going to be this and nothing happens. And it's like, you guys do realize that last year in April, they said it was going to be a below, like a dud of a hurricane season, and they had to backpedal it because of how much activity we had. So granted, you could play devil's advocate and suggest that maybe they're going hard because last year was almost a forecast bust for them. They mentioned very lackluster season, and then they had to ramp it up at the last second. So maybe this time, just like we've kind of seen with Storm Prediction Center, they're going really high to cover their bases. But, I don't know. The writing's on the wall. The science is there. And when we get into the European model, for example, the numbers, they are very scary. And I know that sounds like hype, but that's just my opinion, especially for the Euro, which is a very conservative model, more realistic model most of the time. And with that being said, let's get in there. So this is going to be our latest April European model seasonal outlook. Bless you. Let's start off with the globe. Let's go to the globe and let's take a look at our SSTs. So these are our surface anomalies right here. Going into May, there you go. They were breaking down, and it's already happening. I'm going to show you that in a second. But there's our La Nina creeping in. Then by June, July, and August. Now, I have noticed if we were to switch back to our older model run, the Euro has backed off on our La Nina strength. Notice that we're actually thinking either a cool neutral or a very weak La Nina according to the European model, which is a difference from the last model run. The last model run, what are you doing, Willow? The last model run had us going way into a moderate La Nina, but in this case, the Euro has backed off a little bit, and it's there. If you look at the spaghetti plots of all the ensemble members, it keeps us either at a cool neutral or a weak La Nina, which is not good regardless. That's just not good. El Nino is what we want, technically. We broke rules last year, but anything neutral and beyond that, any colder, and that's just trouble. That's not good. So in this case, the Euro is trying to keep us in a cool, neutral, weak La Nina, which is very reminiscent of what the University of Arizona is thinking. The University of Arizona has us staying right around the weak La Nina phase, is what their prediction was. Right at about 21. I think they matched our numbers here in the Weather Center very closely. I think they said 21 named storms, 11 hurricanes, and I believe either 5 or 6 major hurricanes. It might have been 5. I'm thinking 6. I think 6. PM, how can you say that, though? 20-plus storms, maybe over. We were in El Nino last year, and we had 21 storms. If we open up the gates of atmospheric favorability, the only thing that would be saving us is if we tap into that OHC, which is also record-breaking right now, or, way above what it should be. So I don't know. I do think we can go beyond 20 storms again. If we had 21 named storms for 2023, 20 if you only count the named storms, minus that tropical anomaly, I think it was in January, then 20 named storms. But, I would think 20 plus is very doable. Especially since if you look at our anomalies, they're very reminiscent of 2020, which had 30 named storms. So I don't know. But now let's get in a bit of a closer look. Let's go to the Atlantic. Where are you? Here we are. Let's go to the Atlantic, and we'll go to the precip anomalies. So this is May, and as you can see, as we had mentioned earlier, Kevin, ITCZ is going to start to act up as early as May, and then as soon as we get into June, notice a lot of this very, very anomalous activity in the Caribbean, so we'll need to pay close attention to our folks out there very early on in the season. And if you notice, there's already a lot of precip activity pointed up the eastern coastline, right along the Gulf Stream, and then up along the western coast of Florida, southern Florida, the Bahamas. Can't see any further to the west from there, but regardless, you kind of get the big picture. July, Euro kind of wants us to quiet down a little bit in July. August, on the other hand, forget it. I'm telling you, August, guys, this year, August, I can smell it. I can literally smell it like Bill Paxton and Twister. Something's going to come up like this. Either it's going to go Charlie Ian or it's going to be Idalia. I can feel it literally in my bones. Wow, we just lost a lot of viewers. I guess people are upset at me for saying over 20 storms. There's probably people closing out the stream. This dude's hyping. He doesn't know what he's talking about. September, same thing. September looks just as busy. Only I've noticed that a lot of our models are starting to think it almost indicates that our subtropical high could weaken in September. Very interesting, because notice how a lot of our precip anomalies start to go out to sea, very reminiscent of what they did last year. But at the same time, there's also a lot of erroneous activity still in the Caribbean. So this could possibly mean we will have a combination of fish storms and homegrown storms like this. And that's very possible. That's what happened in 05. 05 had a lot of activity that occurred way out there near the Cape Verdes, and they went out to sea. But then we also had systems that formed up way too close for comfort, and they ended up tracking into the Gulf through the Caribbean. So it could be a 1-2 punch. We'll see. And then October, I'm also noticing this trend as well. It almost seems like a lot of our models are thinking that we'll be done. The United States will be done with hurricane season. Now, granted, obviously, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the end-all, be-all, but if you know, I'll show you guys the CANSIPs again, and then we'll go into the NMME as well, but a lot of our models are tapping us out by October. Caribbean's still going to be lit up, the Bahamas, the Mid-Atlantic, but it looks like the Gulf of Mexico and the Southeast go underneath that La Nina influence as you get into fall and then winter, and it quiets down big time. So European model, again, still screaming in our faces, a lot of activity. Even the ITCZ notice here kind of closes up shop in October. So very interesting. This is where it gets wild. So our accumulated cyclone energy, our ACE score for the Euro as of April 2024 has not changed too much. I'll move the screen over a little bit so you guys can see. This hasn't changed much, but this continues to rise. So this is our overall, this is what the European seasonal outlook is forecasting for tropical cyclone activity. This has gone up. If I go back to March, 17.4 out of our 51 models. You go to April, 21 named storms. So even the Euro is kind of like, hey, let's up the numbers just a little bit. And again, this is a usually very conservative model, the European Center. So what are you doing, Willow? Psst, come here. Come here. Come here. Hurry up. The Euro is continuing to increase things as well. If you go back to February, we didn't have any outlook just yet. March 17, April 21, and then the final nail in the coffin, as I like to put it, is this. This I pulled up while I was in Puerto Rico. That is, let me go ahead and zoom in on the stream so you guys can see. I'm going to zoom way in, and then I'll just shrink it back down. So what we are looking at here is the standardized tropical storm density, which is where the European model is more or less kind of very roughly predicting where we could see a lot of our systems track. And that's crazy. Enhanced expected value through the MDR. West coast of Florida. There she is. West coast of Florida right there. The Houston area, west or eastern Texas, the Mid-Atlantic. So I thought this was very concerning as well. You switch back to March, kind of getting the gist of it, but then April, it really doubled down considerably. No, yeah, you're right. What I'm saying is that it looks like there's not going to be a whole lot of anomalous moisture activity in the Gulf, the Southeast, so it's trying to bring La Nina in, which would suggest that maybe we're not going to see a ton of activity heading back up towards us, but remains to be seen. I definitely understand where you're coming from, though. Climatologically, of course, we start to start to focus it in on the Caribbean, especially the Western Caribbean, and that's when even into November we have those systems that like to just shoot straight out, which I don't know if we're going to see a lot of that this year. I think they're going to be driven westward. But this is very interesting, very concerning that our models are thinking we're going to see enhanced activity all the way across not only the Gulf of Mexico coastline, but even well up the eastern seaboard. So we'll have to wait and see. Again, a very conservative model calling for these values, which is, I don't like the fact that Florida is bullseyed on either side. Like, yeah, you have a lot of other states, but since we jut out there, you have the West Coast and the East Coast, because we have our usual we can't take away from that. We have our usual expected value that's highlighted for the East Coast, and then we have enhanced activity on the west side and in the same place that Idalia hit. So, I don't know. Very interesting. I really want to see what happens now when we get into May. And I don't want to rush it. We still have a little under a month to get there for when this updates and we get into that final home stretch before the hurricane season or before we get our first named storm. And yeah, this here is also very impressive. El Nino is, I think this is it. We've said it a few times and it didn't quite shake out, but I do believe that now this is the end. Truthfully, look at this. Blue anomalies all through all of our Enzo regions. The 1 and 2 has been dead for a while. That's in a weak La Nina already. And then notice in the 7-day change how we just have all the upwelling happening right on the equator. Right along that equatorial line. Right on, actually, yeah, that's spot on. Right on the equator, right there. We just have all that upwelling taking place, and it shows even more so here. in our anomalies, you can see how the hot water is just being split in half. It's like everything's just being parted. It's moving this way. Not literally moving this way, but it's like it's tearing the fabric of El Nino in half right there. So I think this is it. Before the end of the month, we're going to see a lot more of the blue anomalies and so on. Yeah, no, it's definitely going to warm up again. Right now, I think the reason it's cooling is because we've also switched the wind direction as well. We finally have our prevailing trade winds hitting the El Nino, and that's what's really helping to cool it off. So we are going to see a little bit of cooling, but notice that the MDR, the tropics to the north side of our greater Antilles are starting to warm up as well, and the Gulf of Mexico still has patches that are still trying to warm up as well. And the subtropics and the mid-latitudes, which is not good, they're also still highlighting cooling up there as well. Well, only the euro has for the most part. The euro has, actually, I wouldn't even say the euro has really backed down all that much. The euro really hasn't, to tell you the truth. The only month that has really downtrended a lot has been July. July definitely looks very different. August, in fact, I would almost argue that August has refined. I think I can go on this website here and take a look real quick at the way our models have verified and how they've changed. Let's see. Let me see if I can find it without taking up too much time. Extend it. Let's go to long. Let's go down to our precip anomalies. Here we go. So let's go back to March, and we'll scroll through. We'll go to July. Yeah, see, so July has more or less remained the same, brought it in or reined it in just a little bit. June also reined it in just a little bit. When we come up to April, you can see that we've definitely reined it in just some. That's May, then there's June, Caribbean, July, and then August. So, and this August doesn't look all that very impressive either. That's very interesting. Yeah, so that is weird. This almost looks different than what's on here. Can I go back in time? Is there a way to viv this? I don't think I can on this website, unfortunately. So yeah, June looks very homegrown-ish. July is the only one that has kind of bumped down a little bit with a tremendous amount of activity coming off the Horn of Africa, the ITCZ. And then August, this has not changed at all. August has definitely stayed the same. September, this does seem a lot more scattered around, which is very interesting, very scattered. You could make a case that there's development here, stuff here, stuff here, stuff here, stuff here, stuff here. There's just erroneous values all over the place. So this is scattered. This is kind of what's also being indicated on our CFS. The CFS has definitely brought this up a number of times. We've been highlighting this. But August looks very, very refined. August shows a very dominant subtropical high, just system after system plowing into the Caribbean and then coming up potentially into our Gulf of Mexico, Florida. That's why I'm thinking August is going to be the month that we really need to pay close attention to. We come on over to our CANSIPs. CANSIPs, let me zoom down a little bit too. I expanded a little too much. There we go. Move the screen over a little bit so you guys can see. CANSIPs is still thinking much of the same thing. By May, El Nino is going to be dead. And then we're going to get into that weak La Nina by June. July, La Nina is really settling in. Then there's August, September, and October. And notice that the CANSIPs actually starts to really warm up the Atlantic and cools off. There goes Willow again, bumping my wrist. And cool off the mid-latitudes and the subtropics. So that's also very interesting. And then we switch on over to our good old regional CANSIP to the North Atlantic. Why does this still seem zoomed in? There we go. Yes, I know. We're almost done. Excuse me. So this is what we really need to watch out for. This is August, July, June. And we are expecting a little bit of cooling that has been trying to show itself. Either that or we're just getting closer to the statistical norm as we get into August and September. But even then, I'm noticing that the Caribbean and the main development region want to try to stay warm. And they get even warmer into October. And I do believe that's possibly because we're going to be getting out of the climatological norm and starting to cool down climate. No, I'm losing my train of thought. The environment is going to start to cool down as we roll into fall, and so we're going to get further and further away from that climatological norm, which is probably why all of our charts are showing such warm anomalies right now. We're going to get closer to that average per the time of year. The CANSIPs in terms of our... See, and there's September. I'm going to leave it right here. There's September even on the CANSIPs. So the CANSIPs is looking at a combination of stuff ejecting out to sea. We could see a good handful of fish storms, but then this here is just off the chain still. That has a tremendous amount of activity out there for the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. Same thing for August. August, again, look at that. Brings it right on in. Very, very clear west-northwest track, a lot of this moisture activity. And that's what I'm going to be saying, moisture, not tropical systems, but the moisture is just going to be pushing westward. Something is suggesting that the steering flow is going to keep a lot of our moisture out of the greater Atlantic and just funneling it off the ITCZ, funneling it through the Caribbean up like so in this fashion. So we'll have to see what August has in store for us. July, big difference in comparison to what the Euro is thinking. And June, same thing. But then if you go to October, see this? You see that? Big difference. It's like a complete flip. September, and then all of a sudden October, we have much lower precip anomalies out there for the southeast and the deep south. So I don't know. This is what I've been kind of looking at, and it's very interesting. And then November, we keep a lot of these anomalies around, but then the La Nina winter really kicks in, and it's going to get very dry. It's going to be very dry for us. North American model, the North American multi-model shows the same thing by May. La Nina is starting to show herself. June, July, August, we are in a full-fledged La Nina. And the MMME is also showing that MDR Caribbean activity in terms of the sea surface temps. So North American and the CANSIPs are right in line with one another. And if we switch off over here before we get ready to end the stream, there we have it. So May, June, by June, the ITCZ is going to start warming itself up for activity, and the Caribbean is going to be active. July, and I say active again, moisture, not talking tropical activity, but it's going to be active in terms of our thunderstorm and our moisture content. July, the Euro is by itself in this one. The CFS, the CANSIPs, the UK, the NMME now that just released, I want to say yesterday, as a matter of fact. Yesterday or the day before yesterday, the 6th or the 7th. All of them thinking July is going to be busy. August, again, just funneling clearly across the Atlantic, through the Caribbean, right up into the Gulf of Mexico. And then September, see? Very good model-to-model consistency. Again, showing moisture anomalies shooting up and out like so, up into the subtropics and the mid-latitudes, and then a lot of stuff still going on down here. So our models are really starting to rein it in. The only one that's still kind of an outlier is our Euro. And then October, see, once again, southern United States, the southeast starts to really dry out. And then by November, we have our La Nina winter system, or our winter pattern really kicking in. And then December, I don't know, could have a rogue storm out there, it looks like, possibly. Oh, yeah, of course. I'm not ruling out the possibilities, naturally, but I'm just showing that it wants to really close up shop for the United States. We're going to lose a lot of our action, which, if this model does verify, or any of these other models verify, it looks like it could be a very dull weather pattern for much of the South and the central United States. Very, very classic La Nina signature. In fact, I'll go to December because I think December reflects it even better. But, boom. This is very, very La Nina. Extreme La... Now, I'm not saying extreme La Nina in terms of strength, but this is like extreme textbook La Nina setup. Above average moisture up there in Canada, the northern United States. Very, very below average for the South. Yeah, maybe this time we will get Vince. I know I'm full of questions, but if hurricanes don't stir up the waters in the Atlantic Ocean, does it get cooler during the winter months? No. That's the problem. Our tropical cyclones tend to evacuate that energy and bring it north to keep everything kind of in equilibrium. And since we had a lot of crap systems last year that didn't do that for us, that's why it's so abnormally hot, amongst other things. The meridional mode of the Atlantic, the very weak, almost El Nino-esque oscillation that occurs in the Atlantic waters, especially closer to the equator, and a number of other reasons. That recycling didn't occur. We have our different modes and oscillations out there in the Atlantic specifically. Some folks attribute a little bit of our extreme warming from El Nino or strong El Nino having bled over into our Atlantic, which is definitely a doable thing. It's not unrealistic. So hopefully, as dark as this may sound, we can get a number of strong systems to just get all that hot water out of there so we can hopefully go back to normal. Oh, I almost stepped on you, Willow. So we can go back to normal for next year, because next year it's looking like we could continue on with our La Nina pattern. Let me go out to the world view again. We'll switch over to our CANSIPs. That goes out far enough, and then we'll go to our SSTs, not the temperature anomaly. Actually, there you go. Yeah, temperature anomaly. There you go. So if you notice, negative PDO still, which is going to play a role in our pattern. That's not good. So we'll have to see what happens. The negative PDO, that's setting us up for failure in terms of landfalls. And when I say failure, I mean we could see landfalls. The setup out there for the IOD, as well as the Indian monsoon, is setting us up for a very active African easterly jet. And then the La Nina is just kind of like the final nail in the coffin. And there's also some suggestions that the meridional mode down here, to where we have a cooler southern hemisphere and a warmer northern hemisphere, also suggests that potentially more landfalls. And what a lot of folks are really, really looking at closely is, even at this point in time, let me go back to, we'll go August or September. Yeah, see, so what a lot of folks are really looking at here, we'll use August as a prime example. If you look through here, well, I know this is air temps, but I'm still using this because this is more or less exactly what it's going to look like in terms of the sea surface temp. And in fact, I'll switch over to sea surface temp so we have the most accurate image here. See, same thing. When you're out over the ocean, you don't have the frictional impacts or the urban industrial impacts as you would inland or on land. So you could technically use your air temps, your ambient surface temps with your SSTs and etc. But anyways, we'll go ahead and look at our SSTs and we'll kind of highlight the same thing. Mid-latitude subtropics are much noticeably cooler, and then the tropics closer to the equator are much warmer. And so that's what a lot of folks are thinking are going to drive our systems off towards the west. And if you think about it in terms of the stacking, that would suggest that out here where our hot waters are, we're going to have really good upper level ridging. Then we'll have troughing. Then we'll have upper level ridging. We'll have troughing. And then we'll have really good upper level ridging that could extend our high pressure out further to the west. So yeah, guys, that's all she wrote. We're going to get ready to end the live stream now. Even stronger negative PDO as we get into next year, which is very interesting. Waters still look a little hot out there for the Atlantic, and we can be in a full bona fide La Nina next year throughout the duration of our hurricane season, so we'll have to see exactly what happens then. But obviously, that's way too far out in time. Alrighty, guys. That's all she wrote. Lots to discuss as we go over the next 24 hours, and then obviously for the next couple of months, we'll have to pay close attention to what happens out there, because we're getting close to the end of the road, and the next thing you know, we're going to be doing tropical updates and talking all sorts of things. Yep, exactly. We're going to be storm chasing hurricanes. But alrighty, guys, thank you very much for watching tonight. I hope you had a wonderful time in the stream. Thank you for being an awesome audience once again. I'm going to try to make the determination as to whether or not we're going to activate chase mode on Wednesday before the end of the day tomorrow. This way I can take the morning on Wednesday and prep and have everything ready to literally just punch out, jump in the car, and leave on Wednesday. So that's if. And then between now and then, still blueprinting exactly how it is I want to roll out preparedness videos, how in-depth I want to get with it, because part of me really wants to get extremely in-depth. I want to travel around the state of Florida, show you guys the evacuation routes, map out and chart out evacuation routes, kind of do a descriptive, brief looking at the coast, looking inland. Like, I want to get very involved, but at the same time, if YouTube is just going to smother my views, I don't know if I want to get that involved. And I know that sounds very lazy on my part, but at the same time, you know, if I'm going to go through all these lengths, spending gas, traveling all through Florida, etc., for 200 views, it's like, at that rate, I might as well just save the gas and do a discussion with a PowerPoint or something like that. So I don't know. I know that we're getting closer in time, and I'm also waiting to get in on the action and the conversation at the second annual Emergency Management / Meteorology Conference on the 23rd this month. And that'll definitely help tremendously in terms of what sort of preparedness content and information I want to give to you guys. And I might even try to do some video coverage from that event, depending on if they let me. So we'll see what that does, and so on and so forth. But yeah, thank you all very much for watching tonight. I hope you've had a great start to the week. You had a great weekend as well. It's good to be back in the Weather Center, and we will continue to monitor and continue to investigate not only the severe weather situation for the United States, but also what it is that we're going to be facing as we get closer to May and then the inevitable fateful start to the 2024 hurricane season in June. We still have a couple more forecasts that are going to come out as well. CSU is going to revise theirs, and obviously we have yet to see from the big dogs, the main guys, National Hurricane Center's outlook, and I think that should be coming out sometime in May. So we still have a little while between when they release and now. So yeah, we will more than likely see you guys tomorrow. I hope you have a great rest of your Monday night, and stay tuned for more. But until then, this is Weather Center Nazario, signing out.